Hey friends, Jordan Woods Robinson here from AMC's The Walking Dead and Blue Man Group, and this is PopXcast, where science fiction meets pop culture. We're a geek podcast for geek culture, so are you ready to get your geek on? Sit back, relax, grab some gluten-free, non-GMO popcorn, and let's dive into the world pop culture bliss.
You are listening to PopXcast, where science fiction meets pop culture.
Captain's Log Supplemental.
PopXcast.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Excelsior!
Hey guys, welcome to PopX, where science fiction meets pop culture. I'm Austin Burke, your Appalachian geek at heart. We'd like to welcome everyone joining us live in the PopX.live chat room. Come hang out with us and join the conversation at PopXcast.com. If this is your first time tuning into PopX, the first 20 minutes or so, we run down the headlines since our last show, and then we dive into the show topic at the halfway point. But right now, I want to introduce the man, the myth, the legend, Joseph Burke. Joe, how you doing, man?
I'm a little under the weather.
Just messing with you.
Oh, no.
I'm doing good, man. Oh my God, dude. It has been such a while since we recorded an episode, and I know a lot of our fans at PopX have been like, what is up with these guys? What are they doing? Or what happened to PopX? Well, guys, hold your horses for a little bit. Personally, let me answer Austin's question, then I'll tackle the other one. I'm doing awesome. It's Christmas. I got the tree up. We're about 2 days away from just unwrapping everything under that tree and just having an amazing time. So I'm pretty excited, and I know you're probably pretty excited too. So it's Christmas. What's not to be excited about? And I do understand Christmas is not it for everybody, but for me, I kind of like it. So there we go. But we actually, for the past couple of months, we had a death in the family. So Austin and I, about a month ago, we had to go travel all the way back to Kentucky and partake in that. And that was kind of Austin. It was expected. It was our grandmother. She passed, but it was just one of those things. You know, we had to come together and do what we had to do, and for family and stuff like that. And a grandmother was an amazing patriarch of the family. I want to say that first and foremost. I think if it wasn't for her, Austin and I and our creative arts, creative connections would not be intact, because grandmother instilled in both of us to be creative, to be musically inclined, to be artistic, to just do all of that stuff. And that, I kind of feel a little bit of that came from her. Don't you feel that way?
Oh, I feel like, she's the reason. And really, if you look at it, these were the times when we connected too. We would always go to grandma's house and meet up. And that's kind of how we grew up and established this connection. And then I came on board for PopX, and the rest is history. But it really all spawned from her. So she was a really important part, both of our lives. You know, it was a very difficult week. It was a difficult time. But Joe, if there's one good thing that could have came from it, we got to see family, and I got to hang out with you a little bit.
And this is also true. We got to share a chicken leg together. And if you know anything about an Appalachian funeral, there's probably not a chicken left in the entire county by the time that they get done with the funeral. But that was a little fun Appalachian humor for you. But it is definitely good to be back. I actually, now, as a matter of fact, so that was in November. Let's fast forward to the end of November. I had to get ready and go travel because I was getting ready to celebrate my 40th birthday. So I went and did that up in Chicago, and I actually have a picture. Can I show a picture right quick?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. So let you know what I've been doing for the past 20 years for Blue Man Group is I organize these marketing meetups where fans from the community, we get together, whether it's in New York, Boston, Chicago, Las Vegas, Orlando, or globally in Berlin or wherever a venue is at the time. We all get together, we break bread, we see a show, and we just share in the passion. I've been doing this for 20 years at Blue Man Group. And this past just December the 7th, we celebrated my 40th birthday. And look at this. There's a cool picture here if you're seeing it out on the live stream. If you're watching on the podcast, I do encourage you to come check out the live stream. But a really great host of people here. There's my wife beside me and just a bunch of great friends that I've been friends with for over 20 years thereabouts, specifically the actors and the Blue Men themselves. Just the whole Chicago company treated me like royalty. And it was, some of it was just like a little hard to swallow because I was just given so many accolades I feel I don't deserve. But I want to give a huge shout out to my friend Boomer Galassi, who is the team captain Blue Man at Blue Man Group Chicago. Thank you, Boomer, for all that you did, and for all the fans who traveled from Denver, from Bloomington, Illinois, from Texas and beyond. Thank you guys. And Indianapolis, Indiana. There was just so many, Baltimore. There were just so many people there just for this show to celebrate with me my 40th birthday. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. So that's where I was for 8 days in Chicago, dude. 8 days in Chicago. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I was seeing your pictures on Facebook, kind of following your journey, man. It looked like you guys had an absolute blast.
It was crazy, dude.
Man.
It was crazy.
Did you just say 40?
I did say 40.
You look good for 40.
What do you think about it?
Yeah? I think he looks good for 40.
Stop it. Seriously. I love you, man. Well, you ready to open this thing up and get into some news?
Yes, sir.
All right. So who are you? How can people find you? Have we done the official intros of each other yet? I don't think we have.
I did my intro, but you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Burkinator. No, I'm just kidding.
Now, I do want to say, I was on your feed today. You're about to hit 50K.
I'm getting close.
That is a huge freaking feat, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, man.
Congratulations.
It's I recently went. I don't even know if I gave you the confirmation that I did. So I recently went full time, officially. I am only working YouTube. So I've had a lot of time to kind of flesh things out on there and do some side gigs, of course, to kind of build up a brand. But man, it's really paid off. My wife's been so supportive, but I'm loving it, and I'm trying to put out a video a day. So we're going to see how long that goes.
Well, congratulations. And you know what? For 2020, dude, you're going to hit 100,000. I'm just calling it right now. By this time next year, you'll be at over 100K. There you go. I am Joseph Burke, Central Florida, seasoned comic book nerd and retro enthusiast, and I just want to say that we're a part of an amazing network of creative collectives from a vast expanse known only to the universe as the Creative Multiverse. Now, this network of creatives is lightly sprinkled with talent that surpasses even what our own imaginations could even fathom. For more information on the Creative Multiverse, visit us on our Facebook group page, and we're also on Twitter and Instagram. You can find us at the Creative Multiverse. Now, we're eager to see what creative talents lies deep within you. And so, if you missed episode 103, the Joker review, which seemed like a long time ago, but it really wasn't a long time ago, but it was in the back of our brains. Check out our official website, PopXcast.com, for this and a lot of pretty cool creative archive past shows. 103 of them to be exact after tonight. And be sure to head over to Google Play, iTunes, and after the show, and click on that subscribe button and catch up on some amazing shows from the PopX Collective Archive. And while you're there, we'd love for you to leave us a glowing and beautiful 5-star rating and review, whether you're on Google Play, iTunes, or Spotify, or wherever you get your stream from. We would definitely appreciate that. Austin, are you ready for some news, my friend?
Oh, I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Oh, I think
Are you ready to kick this thing off? Because, I mean, I'm kind of sitting here waiting. I'm like, let's do this. You know what? Before I forget, I also want to give a huge shout out right quick. We have Luke McCracken, Jason Bryant, David Farrell, Brandon Schwab, Sean Hockney, John Giovanni Preto, and we have just a host of people watching us right now on our Facebook live stream. And if you're watching this stream right now, please click like and share, and be sure to host the feed on your own timeline as well. That would be greatly appreciated. With all that said, we'll be right back. News is coming up.
Extra, read all about it. This is PopX News, coming to you live right here on PopXcast. PopXcast.com.
All right, Austin, you get the honor and privilege of leading us off this week.
Let's do it. So the Force is strong with the latest Star Wars film, The Rise of Skywalker. Early numbers indicate the final chapter of the Skywalker saga has already earned $40 million from Thursday evening previews, providing the 5th largest preview night ever. It's bombing, isn't it? That's just $1 million ahead of Avengers Infinity War's $39 million take in 2018. Force is strong with the latest Star Wars film because however, the film did open $57 million on Friday. I'm sorry. The document was kind of messed up. It's okay. But so $57 million opening on Friday for The Force Awakens. The Last Jedi, $45 million, $40 million from Thursday evening previews. So taking not a significant drop, but a bit of a drop. And I understand why some people are kind of concerned in that regard, but it is kind of the end of the saga. That's just $1 million ahead of, like I said, Avengers Infinity War's $39 million. See, that shocks me as well, because Avengers Infinity War, we looked at as this giant, like, whopping huge movie that's bringing in all of this money, whereas this movie, you know, makes $1 million more for those Thursday night previews. But a lot of people are looking at this as not necessarily a failure, but, oh man, The Rise of Skywalker is disappointing at the box office. If you compare it to the prior two movies, sure. But if you look at the divisive critic reviews and even the B+ cinema score, to me, I think that's a great number, especially the fact that The Last Jedi was so divisive and Solo really underperformed box office expectations. Did that movie even come out? I don't remember. But the Rise of Skywalker is a movie that I think is faring pretty well at the box office. It's not going to hit that $200 million, but it's going to come just below. And in my opinion, that's okay.
That is okay. You know, it's really interesting. You know, you think about the legacy of both franchises, whether you're talking Marvel Entertainment or Lucasfilm. You know, Lucasfilm is 9 films. You know, if you exclude all the side story tangents and all that stuff, it's essentially 9 films across 40 years. Okay, if you look at it, you know, and so actually 41 years. If you look at Marvel, it is actually 20+ films across 12 years, and so. You know, you think about the hype and the cross-pollination between all the films of the MCU. You can't compare apples to oranges. You can't say that Star Wars is in the same league as Marvel. It's not. You know, Star Wars is a space opera, first and foremost. That's exactly what it is. And then you think of Marvel. You know, Marvel is kind of technically a space opera, but taken on Earth with multiple heroes and multiple... You know, you think of Endgame, you had 40-some heroes lined up to battle Thanos. Well, in this one, you had 3 against 1, essentially, if you think about it. So you can't really compare, and I'm trying to get with the numbers here, but I'm just saying it makes sense with Marvel. 20+ films across 12 years. 9 films across 41 years. A little bit of a different, you know, there's gaps. And, you know, George Lucas kind of destroyed us on the prequels. I'm going to say that first and foremost. So there was a little bit of not high expectation coming into this new trilogy. But, you know, I think J.J. Abrams did the best he could with it. But that's all I got to say about that.
Well, and everybody's, they're trying to compare it to The Force Awakens. See, The Force Awakens was this once-in-a-lifetime event that's just never going to happen again. We had a large gap, right? Maybe not as large between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace, but it was still this large gap during a time when blockbusters are bigger than they've ever been. Then The Force Awakens gets announced and everybody says, okay. And this is when people hated the prequels. Some have come around on the prequels, and it's crazy to think about that.
I don't like the sound. It feels coarse. Anyway, sorry.
Exactly.
Move on.
But, and yeah, you're exactly right, man. But I do think the gap between what was it, 10 years between Revenge of the Sith and The Force Awakens, something like that.
Yeah. So, well, let's see. 83 was the Return of the Jedi, and then Phantom Menace was 99, 92, no, 94, I think. Wasn't it? It was later.
I thought it was
no, 99. Yes. 99. You're
so
right.
That's a big gap, right? And the Phantom Menace did great.
16
at the time,
years.
But The Force Awakens, dude, this was something else. Like, and people are comparing The Last Jedi to that. So there's no way it was going to make as much as The Last Jedi. But the fact that it's still making as much as the best of the best with what Marvel's doing right now with all of these heroes lined out, It's pretty impressive, man.
It is.
So I think it's faring well at the box office so far. Now we have to see how next weekend goes, because if that drop off is 60-70%,
Yeah.
may not be great.
Wow. I will be taking my wife Alex to see at the Disney Dine-In experience at Disney Springs tomorrow night at 8:45.
Nice.
So I will be seeing my second viewing of that. All right, moving along here with the news, I want to make sure we stay on topic because we do have a hefty discussion of Star Wars tonight. Earlier this year, Marvel Studios confirmed that The What If will be the company's first original animated series for Disney+. Now, like the comic of the same name, What If, will explore alternate worlds where stories played out differently. Now, during the CCXP earlier this month, which is a conference, Kevin Feige confirmed that The What If Season 2 has already been budgeted and planned and in post-production. So they've not even rolled out What If Season 1. They're already working on Season 2. And so it's going to be pretty hype from what I can tell. But via BuzzFeed Brazil, Feige said, I'm very happy that we're doing What If series for Disney right now. I've seen most of them, and he said, we have 10 for Season 1. So there's going to be 10 episodes, and we're already working on the next 10 for Season 2. Feige went on to mention that the first episode of the series, which will explore the world of Peggy Carter, took the super soldier serum and become Captain Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. Now, in that timeline, Steve Rogers fought alongside Captain Carter in an early Iron Man armor. Haley Atwell will reprise her role as Peggy for the episode in the voiceover. So they're getting all the heavy. Even Tony Stark himself, RDJ, has been confirmed to come in and reprise his vocal roles for this.
This is impressive.
It's freaking impressive.
And I say that because
yeah,
it's not often you can bring in these big time Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr. to these roles, and you can look at it and say, well, it's an animated show, but it's an offshoot of the universe. But this is the power of Kevin Feige, man. He's holding up that Infinity Gauntlet and he's saying, join me as we expand the Marvel universe. So I hope Season 1 kills it. I know that there are at least going to be a few episodes that I'm sitting here salivating over, so I can't wait, man. This sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
it really does.
Well, I mean, I think that they're able to do things here for the first time on Disney Plus that they've never been able to do before.
Yeah,
and you can get away with that in animation and cut half the. You don't even have near the overhead cost because animation's a lot easier to do. And with what Warner Brothers is doing with DC animation, did you see the Red Sun trailer by chance?
Yes.
Dude, I'm telling you, shut up and take my money. That looks like I've read the comic. But this looks like insane. I can't wait. Oh my God, I'm just so excited. All right, Austin, you're going to have to move on because I can't take it anymore.
Let's transition from one streaming platform to another.
Yes.
Netflix. So it looks like Netflix is all in with the He-Man franchise. Just months after announcing the new He-Man animated series from Kevin Smith, the streaming service is hard at work on yet another Masters of the Universe project. Deadline reports that Netflix is teaming up with Mattel Television to create an original CG animated series, another one, called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So based on this report, we'll have a fresh take on the franchise with some reimagining. The series won't compete with Smith's project. Instead, it will also be a brand companion to it. All right, well,
okay.
Sure. Interesting.
Okay.
Sure. Here's the official description from Netflix. On the planet of Eternia, a young lost prince discovers the powers of Grayskull and transforms into He-Man, Masters of the Universe. The classic battle between He-Man and the evil Skeletor, that's what Madison calls me, rages to new heights as both heroes and villains forge new and mighty teams, a new generation of heroes fighting for the fate of us all. In the end, who will become Master of the Universe? I know there are multiple Masters of the Universe, Joe, but who cares? Take my money.
Well, I think it's really cool that we're living in an era now where retro and pop culture is more and more appreciated in the franchises. I mean, we're getting television shows made about our childhood, essentially, the toys that made us, the movies that made us. And if you've seen the toys that made us, number 3, well, actually it's season 1 when they talk about Masters of the Universe. In season 3, they're talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But it's just really awesome because the energy surrounding pop culture and that period between 1978 and 1985 is such an etched out time frame for a lot of people. I mean, myself included. I mean, watching He-Man's and the Masters of the Universe come when the episodes were airing for the first time Watching these as a child, it was just mind-blowing. But now that pop culture is on board, and these companies have kind of like woken up out of their dead sleep and decided to really start hopping on the bandwagon, what better way to do it than Netflix, where they can be creative. They can take a franchise and give it a new spin with this new CGI platform that they're talking about, and then someone like Kevin Smith can come along and just totally work his magic and do his own story. I'm totally okay with that. If it's He-Man and it's being produced, I'm okay with that. I have no problems with that, and I think it's awesome, and I think it just echoes the times that we're living in. And I think that big corporate is just seeing that, oh my God, these things people hold near and dear to their heart. Let's go that way, and I think that's a good move.
Well, as of now, it's almost what DC is doing with their main universe and this Joker movie. It's an offshoot.
Yeah.
And we could end up having another Joker in this Robert Pattinson Batman movie, but they hope that the fans can understand that they're two separate things, and that's exactly what they're doing with He-Man. They hope that the fans can comprehend, and they used to be afraid of this, but I think they've realized we're not stupid.
No.
We can separate these two things, so let's see which one's better, but let's not make it a competition. Let's rejoice in the fact that we have two He-Man shows. That's awesome.
Let's look at Christopher Nolan, for example. He done a trilogy based on what he wanted. He wanted Batman to be more realistic and more relatable.
Absolutely.
And he nailed it. All three films are spectacular in their own right. And so does his fall in the timeline of Tim Burton's 19? No, it doesn't. But it's his own take on the character. And right. I think that's what you're looking at when you're going into Masters of the Universe. So moving on here. Looks like this week starts with some good news for Star Trek fans. According to the report by Deadline, it seems that CBS has now renewed Star Trek Picard for a second season before the first season has even aired. Again, we're getting, people are already expecting this to blow it out of the water. Now, the new 10-episode series by Alex Kurtzman will be available on CBS All Access starting next month, January 2020. According to Deadline's own sources, the production of Season 2 should begin as early as spring. Now, Captain Jean-Luc Picard's adventures will continue for at least 10 more episodes for the late 2020 or early 21 release. Star Trek Picard will see a new face in the writing room in its second season, even though Michael Caban, the show's first season showrunner, will stay with the series as an executive producer. He will transition to the Showtime adaptation of his novel, The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, sometime next year. So it sounds like they're really anticipating this Picard series to be a home run. They're really... I know personally I am too. I can't wait to see the continuation story of Jean-Luc Picard, and I'm a huge Trekkie. I know you are too, Austin. Are you excited for Picard?
I am, but the look on my dad's face when I showed him that trailer, man.
Really?
I don't think there's anyone else in the world more excited, because Dad literally, he looks at me and goes, "That's my show. That's my boy." That's what he said, and I'm like, "God." I get so excited when I show my dad stuff that I know he loves, man. So we're going to be watching this together every episode. Man, I am so thrilled for this season of television. It's going to be great.
But how cool is that, though, that they've created a show where you and I grew up on The Next Generation, and now that our fathers who introduced us to Star Trek, we can sit down with them and watch a whole new show together, and literally the whole Next Generation experience is relived all over again.
Ain't that crazy?
That's cool, dude.
It's crazy.
My dad called me up. He said, hey, Bub. No, this is my dad. Hey, Bub, did you hear about that new show with Patrick Stewart? I'm like, yeah, but I heard about it. He's like, I don't have CBS All Access. Do you have it? I'm like, yeah. Can we watch it together? Sure, Dad. I'll provide the service. You bring the popcorn. We'll do it.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. It's good times, though.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want. Well, I do, before we move on, a little note about this Mortal Kombat movie, man, and I do want to hit on this real quick. So Mortal Kombat began production back in September with screenwriter Greg Russo providing a teaser image on Twitter. Actor Ludi Lin provided a brief look behind the scenes earlier this week with a brief fighting video featuring his character, Liu Kang. Man, they wrapped production so quick on this movie, which feels kind of scary, but at the same time, it also feels kind of confident. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this Mortal Kombat movie? Because it's done. Like it's they're editing right now.
Well,
it's crazy to me.
I think honestly that I think it's going to be fantastic because I think what NetherRealm Studios have done already with the video game, they pretty much essentially created a movie within the video game itself already. You just get to play the movie. That's the only difference. And I think with just all the lore and all the story that they've written already in the video games, they have so much to pull from. And so it's not just about Shang Tsung or Goro or Shao Kahn anymore. It's about a bigger story. And it's about, with modern day effects, I just can't wait to see what Scorpion and Sub-Zero look like. Come on, dude. I mean, shut up and take my money. If he says get over here in the movie, I'm all right. My $10 is well spent. I'm good. I'm good. Get over here. You know what's coming, though. Wait a minute.
Get over here.
Anyway. But you get the point. You know, it's just like, I'm a fan. Always will be a fan. I love the original 1994 film. I will always love that film. And the soundtrack was even as good as the movie. And so, yes, I'm pretty hyped for Mortal Kombat, actually. But it did wrap just a couple of weeks ago. They were filming in Australia. And so they're done. It's in post now. Are you excited about it, or are you on the fence about it? I know you're kind of the big critic guy, so.
I was nervous at first, man, but it really is. It's exciting because I looked at they had a picture of the cast the other day and how similar every cast member looks to their characters. And I'm telling you, man, they couldn't have cast this movie better just from a look perspective. Now we have to see how they actually perform in the film. But I think this one could be one of the biggest surprises for next year. I really do. There are a few movies of these smaller, like, franchise films that we've seen before and that are coming back that I think are going to surprise. But I think at the top of that list for me is Mortal Kombat. So nervous, hesitant, but also really, really excited because this could be the first great video game movie. And that excites me.
Well, we'll ask it out to the fans too watching us live right now over on Facebook Live. What do you guys think about Mortal Kombat, the revamp, relaunch, reboot of the film? Are you excited? You going to go watch the film? Do you have expectations for it? Are you a fan of the video game? So let us know. Leave your comments below, okay? All right, so moving on with the last one now. I was in Chicago, actually, last week when all this stuff dropped, which was... I was sitting there in my hotel room, and the subway train going by every 50 seconds, literally, and here is, like 7 a.m., the drop, Ghostbusters. So let's talk that. I know we can't roll the video right now because they'll copyright us, but... Are you excited about this new spin on the Ghostbusters franchise?
I am. And I wasn't at first. I'm like, oh no, rolls eyes. Here we go again, because the 2016 movie just didn't work for me, man. But this movie looks good. Now, they're using the trope of, I feel like every nostalgic feeling movie has to get a group of kids.
Yeah,
that's just what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And they even got one of the Stranger Things kids. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
But the trailer hit me, man, and Paul Rudd genuinely looks like he's perfectly cast into his role. So this is exciting so far, man. I like the trailer.
He looked very comfortable in that role. And it was just like, okay, that was a perfect casting call for sure.
It was.
And I do like how they're telling this story from the perspective of the inherited children of this legacy that they may not know much about. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the Spangler and all of that. And and I was just like, holy cow, she looks just like Egon.
Dude, she does.
It was like great. It was like, oh my God, Harold Ramis. Yeah, he would be proud of that moment right there.
He would.
And then we also had the other trailer for Birds of Prey as well. Now, this is coming off the heels of the Suicide Squad. And Suicide Squad 2, which is already in production, I do believe, with James Gunn. Yes. But this is Birds of Prey, which is an alternate storyline. Now, it looks like it's a movie. It should have renamed it Harley Quinn.
Yes.
Because it looks like a movie about the origin and just follows Harley Quinn and how she finds a band of misfits, becomes the Birds of Prey. Are you excited about that?
Yes.
Do we need a Birds of Prey film?
That's my problem. This film doesn't feel necessary. Now, that first trailer came out, and I like the tone, the vibe of the first trailer, but it could also be called Harley Quinn's Deadpool. because that's what it feels like. She's talking to the camera, she's talking to the audience, and they think that Birds of Prey is a more recognizable IP. I beg to differ. I think the movie should have been called Harley Quinn and, right? And she's in the title. It's like the emancipation of the finality, blah, blah. But don't call it Birds of Prey. Call it the Harley Quinn Chronicles or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
But once again, this could be another one that comes out and surprises, because Suicide Squad has this just bad taste in my mouth. And if this movie comes out and delivers, and I believe it's rated R as well, then it could take that taste out and get me immensely more excited for Suicide Squad 2. So I hope it does that, but I am a tad bit hesitant.
I think they're trying to use Harley Quinn as kind of like the scapegoat of Deadpool, breaking the fourth wall barrier. And that could either be a really fun thing or that could be a flop. And so I guess time will tell on that one. But I kind of picked up on that. I was like, wait, she's not got a red mask on. What the heck? Sitting here watching it. But all right, guys, that is the news for this episode. And we're actually going to go ahead and transition in now. We got about 30 minutes where we're going to just hit pretty hard Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9. Before we do that, though, we're going to have to roll our spoiler alert warning. Now, if you've not seen Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker yet, now, I will say that we're going to discuss some spoilers, some pretty heavy spoilers, and so if you're not wanting to be in on that discussion, we kindly encourage you to maybe hit the pause button and go see the film and then come back and pick it right up on our live stream, okay? But don't go anywhere. Star Wars coming up next.
Danger. You are about to enter a PopX spoiler alert. Beyond this point, there is no return. You have been warned.
You have been warned. Beyond this point, there is no return. Now, Austin, I'll share a couple opening thoughts, but I want you to do what you do best, and that's just unpack this thing and dissect it best as you can. For me, I didn't have a lot of expectation into this after Rian Johnson's fiasco with The Last Jedi. I was just really kind of emotionally damaged because I felt like my entire childhood was thrown in a lake, literally. Luke's throwing his lightsaber into a massive abyss of water. But I going into this, there was a lot of things. There was a lot of fan service, which is okay. I'm okay with fan service. I kind of ate it up, actually. I think that J.J. Abrams did the best he could with the hand that was dealt with him. And all the loose ends from The Last Jedi and all the loose ends and all the plot holes from the first one, The Rise, what was it? Yeah. It was just like, holy cow, JJ did a really phenomenal job with what he was given. And it wasn't a perfect film by no means. I don't think that I don't think any of the Star Wars, would you could say any of the Star Wars films is a perfect film?
Out of all nine?
All nine.
The main ones?
Yeah.
I would say Empire comes close, but Empire's close for me, but that would be the only one.
Empire would be close for me. Empire would definitely be my number one, for sure. Yeah. The Force Awakens, probably a close number two, actually.
I love Force Awakens.
Force Awakens is good on its own, and I think that's JJ at his best. And I think if they would have stuck with JJ on all three, we would have had a story continuity unlike anything we've ever seen. But that said, I do feel that JJ wove together, as the Russo brothers would do, in the MCU. I think he wove together as best as he could, being the seasoned director and everything that he is. He really I felt when I walked out of the theater, I had some finality to the series and the Skywalker saga. I felt like I was like, okay, this is a finality. This is an ending that I can agree with, that I can see happening. This is feasible for me. So I want to cut over to you. I don't want to be doing all the talking. So what overall thoughts? Pick it out. Do it. Dissect it.
General thoughts. I actually don't hate The Last Jedi because I think it's a very well-made movie, and I think it's technically spectacular. From a story perspective, I don't think it's Star Wars. I don't. And I hate to say it like that because when I first watched the movie, I'm like, yeah, because it looks great. Like, Ryan Johnson, I think, is a brilliant filmmaker, and he proved that this year with Knives Out, which is top 10 of the year for me.
Yeah.
I think he's a great director. But he doesn't work well in this saga.
No.
Because he was far too concerned with his own ideas, other than what JJ set up in The Force Awakens. But I don't even blame Ryan Johnson for that. I blame Disney for that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to jump on that bandwagon, but as much as we talk about the prequels for being bad movies, because I think 2 out of the 3 are bad movies, at least they had an end goal. At least they had a story from beginning to end. We're going to start here, we're going to end up here, and we're going to fill in that middle with this, this, and this. And George Lucas, say what you will about his direction, and I'm right there with you, but he had a story, and he executed. Same thing with the original films. Now, I've heard some stories around that maybe the original trilogy was a bit up in the air on some choices in the movies, but even then, they made it work. They didn't have the big studio overhead that Disney is now. With Disney, and I love Disney, I'm not smack talking Disney, but they did not have a plan with this movie. And there are so many things about The Rise of Skywalker that unfortunately I think showcase the fact that they didn't have a plan, because they just pull things out of their butt at the beginning of this movie and like, oh wait, even though this was never established in the previous 2 films, here's a thing, and here's a thing. And I know we're talking spoilers, I'll get into it in a minute. But my thoughts walking out of The Rise of Skywalker is, well, I think the critics are kind of being too harsh, because I've seen some people saying this is awful. I'm like, okay, back up. Some people said this is worse than Attack of the Clones.
What?
What are you talking? I'm sorry.
Wow.
But what?
Wow.
What?
Wow.
And I get, as a capper to a trilogy, maybe it does fumble some things, but I'm just like, I could watch 10 minutes of this and say, duh, this is better than Attack of the Clones. But I do understand that this is a movie that just, they just had to fill in so many gaps.
There's a lot of gaps, dude.
There's a lot of gaps,
There's a
man.
lot of gaps.
And the first 2 movies were so different in ideology that it makes this movie look worse than I think it actually is. And that's a shame, because I do think there's some great ideas, some great moments, some really epic things about some characters in The Rise of Skywalker. And I do have a feeling that it could age maybe a bit better than The Last Jedi, because like I said, when I walked out of The Last Jedi, I'm like, oh, that was good. One was good, well-made movie, but I don't know if this worked. I think this could actually age up because of, like you said, the fan servicey moments.
Yeah.
But even the fan servicey moments, and it does bother me, because it's like they just took everything that people were saying and they meshed it all together in a non-cohesive way. But it's also like, well, I mean, I am a fan.
Yeah.
So I like to be serviced, not my kids.
Oh,
Regardless,
yeah.
I feel like this is a movie that had to jumble together things to end off a lot of story arcs, and even in doing that, left some story arcs open. Now, all of that being said, I still had fun with the movie. This is not me hating on the film, because I think it's a pretty good movie, but still, I think it could have been better. Yeah. And those are just some general thoughts. I want to throw it back over to you.
No.
I'm talking.
No. That's exactly what I wanted you to do. I mean, I'm thinking about like the whole retrospective. There was a lot of like plot holes, and there was a lot of like character dynamics that had to come. You think of like, you know, you're coming to the end of a saga, of a 9-film, 42-year saga. You have to have some form of finality to it all, and the questions had to be asked. You know, Carrie Fisher passed away. How do we handle that? There was a lot of like, what do we do with R2 and 3PO? What do we do with Chewbacca? And you know, I will say they had me at Chewbacca. The whole death scene when he was on the escape pod. I was like, I was sitting there watching. I was like, is that really how he's going to go out in an explosion on an escape pod in a random planet? Was it Tatooine or something they were on? I was like, why? I remember asking. I was sitting here with a friend of mine in the theater from church, and I looked over and I was like, why? That wasn't even a proper. It was like, that wasn't even. Anyway, don't get me started. Yeah. But it was interesting. But every character, of course, Chewbacca lived. I'm just, spoiler alert. But every character seemed to have some form of finality, whether it was Leia's transitioning to the spirit realm. It was really nice to see the clothes kind of just die down and reside, kind of like how Yoda did in Dagobah. I really kind of wish that there would have been a moment, and I know I'm kind of fast forwarding all the way towards the end of the film, but I wish there was a really good moment where you got to see Luke and Leia and maybe Han, or some kind of flashback scene of the three, the trio, the triad, together once more on screen, whether it was all done in CGI or what. But maybe, you know how they were telling the backstory of Leia. Mind you, Leia having a lightsaber and being trained by Luke.
Yeah,
that was cool. What'd you think about that, man? That
I
Leia was a Jedi.
Yeah, man. I'm so impressed with what they did with Leia in general. The fact that they had to, and if you think about it too hard, it is kind of they're working around the lines that they had from her. But even then, JJ handled that so wonderfully, I thought, and adding another layer to her character through this movie is probably the best thing they could have done. And they did that with her. I think her and Kylo Ren, in my opinion, were the two strongest characters in this movie. And the fact that they both went out together. And I heard a lot of people say, well, why did she wait so long to fade away? Well, I think she knew deep down that Kylo was not going to make it. So when Kylo faded, she faded. Mother and son, I thought that was poetry almost. So I thought that moment worked very, very well. And those were probably my two favorite characters in the whole movie.
And, they did a lot of things with the Force here that had never been discussed or talked about in terms of, Star Wars lore and canon. For example, the healing aspect. We saw a little bit of that in Mandalorian with Baby Yoda, healing Mando. But you think about it, in terms of the actual physical Jedi, transferring their force, their life force to another so they could live. And that's exactly what happened when you were talking about with Kylo Ren at the end. Rey was mortally wounded and was dying, and he pretty much risked himself to save Rey so Rey could finish the job. And now, if you've not seen obviously you would have seen it if you're watching the show at this moment, but Palpatine is back. Which kind of blew me away. I didn't know he was going to have such a heavy role in this film. I was just sitting there like, maybe he's a cameo or a ghost on the Death Star. No, he's the big bad. And how did you feel about that? How did you feel about Darth Sidious? And all the, this was another thing that was never talked about. All the Sith were embodied with him, and they all came from him, which means that he would have been the originator of the Sith. Yeah. What is your thoughts on that?
That's a heavy. I was excited in theory to see him back. Now, I thought he was good in the movie. Take nothing away from his performance. I just, to me, it kind of negates what happened to him at the end of Return of the Jedi. It's like, oh, so the entire redemption for Darth Vader is just inert now because he's back, and they didn't even really bother to explain how.
No, they didn't.
He's back. I'm just like, and here's what I think, honestly. I think Rian Johnson killed Snoke. JJ said, well, what are we going to do? Well, let's make Snoke a clone of Emperor Palpatine, just a really bad clone, and let's bring back Emperor Palpatine. But the problem with that is you have to tell us how he's back. Maybe not. Maybe that didn't bother some people. But for me, that was just a big, like, we're going to get an answer. They're going to explain it. And maybe it was just the subtlety of transferring the life force and Rey, back and forth to Kylo and healing that factor and whatnot. But maybe one line would have been nice. But
well, if they would have just spent 60 seconds in a quick, flash scene of what would have happened when he fell down the well at the end of Return of the Jedi. But my take on it was, and this was, I've only seen it once, is during that scene, when we're first on, I can't remember even the planet that the Sith is part of.
Oh gosh, yeah,
Exalata or something. I don't know. Anyway, Star Wars fans are going to rip me a new one for that one. I'm so sorry, but live long and prosper. Sorry, but anyway, there's a scene there where it cuts, and you see these giant test tubes with clones of Snoke in it. You see in all these bodies of like, I guess it's failed attempts of cloning or possible future representations that are yet to come. And my interpretation was that they're mass producing all these forms where Sidious can transfer his essence into so he can live. Yeah. And that was the, I guess it wasn't explained. It wasn't said in the film, So that is my interpretation of it. And then you get this like wide angle shot, and there's this massive robotic limb coming down with cables, and it looks something out of a freaking Blade Runner film. And here's his body attached to it, and it's like, is this thing keeping him alive? Or there's none of it explained. I'm sitting there and I was like, that would be a cool visual to draw, but what is it? What's up there? Can the camera pan up there and let's see what this arm's connected to? Because I want to see what this crap is. Sorry, I started to throw it out, but it's just like none of that was explained. Like, how did he live? All we saw was the scars on his hands from Return of the Jedi.
It was cool, but it would have worked in a first film or even a second film, but to never establish this in any other movie, and this is my big issue, and this is how I can tell Disney didn't have a plan here, is, in a trilogy, you have to establish things to come in the future. Like, well, Austin, they didn't establish Bane and Batman Begins, but what? Ra's al Ghul was established in the first film, and he comes back into play in the third movie, and everything plays off of that storyline. And same thing with the Toy Story franchise and the Lord of the Ring franchise. Maybe a line or two in The Force Awakens, or at the end of The Last Jedi, if JJ would have been able to direct. Okay, our mission is to now stop Palpatine from coming back, because we know there's now word that he could come back. And then in the third movie, he's back. What do we do? It also bothered me that he had this giant fleet, and it just kind of...
Yeah, where the heck did that come?
Where did that come from?
The Last Order.
Hundreds of them, and they could each do what the Death Star did. It's like they spent and I get it, technology advances, blah, 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 but they spent so much time building that first Death Star. I mean, it was this big, just giant thing, and they built 100 Death Star ships in the matter of how many years? And no one...
It was like a number nobody could number. It was unreal, because you look at that wide shot of all those, I'm sitting here looking at all these fleet ships, and I'm like, they all got the cannon on them. I'm like, that's a lot of time to pull off. I mean, they would have had to been planning this during A New Hope for it to be executed flawlessly. And they're rising up out of the ashes. They're rising out of the planet. Like, these ships are not floating already. They're coming up out of the sod, the soil of it was not well thought out. And, the one thing, if there's one thing that I don't like about this series, is that there was no solid enemy from start to finish.
Yeah.
I mean, Kylo Ren is not the enemy. Kylo Ren is an antagonist to the storyline. Essentially, he's an antagonist, and he sacrifices himself in the end. That's poetic. I get that. That's nice. But Snoke was killed in 2. Who's the bad?
They will claim it as Emperor Palpatine, but there was no establishment that he was back in the first 2 movies. So that's not it, Chief. That's not it. If somebody's claiming that was never in the cards. Now, like I mentioned, I liked Kylo, really everything about his character. I think bringing Harrison Ford back was a big part of the audience accepting that he is now good, because without that scene, without that moment, I would have been like, well, you don't have Daddy's approval and you killed Han Solo. But now it's like, okay. I mean, and I know it was just a memory, but it was still very well done. My only issue with Kylo's character is, why did they have to do that awkward, I'm talking Anakin, Padme, cringeworthy kiss at the end that was so out of left field? Now, it wasn't out of left field, because everybody's on Reddit, Raylo, #Raylo, and I'm hearing JJ went to Reddit and saw these things and put it all in the movie, and after seeing that kiss, I'm like, maybe he did.
Maybe.
It wasn't earned. I like a romance between them, but maybe split this movie into 2 parts. And this is something we texted about. Give me another movie of that relationship before we get an awkward kiss.
No. And you actually hit the nail on the head, and I'm glad you brought that up. Is because, coming out of there were so many planets, so many side missions, so much things that our heroes had to do just to get to Palpatine. All right, so you think about all these franchises before. Why didn't Star Wars and Lucasfilm break the mold and create a 2-part finality like Infinity War Endgame, Deathly Hallows Part 1, Deathly Hallows Part 2? it works. I mean, if you've got that much of a storyline, have yourself time to build it out. Release the first film and you have another year to work, you know? But when Disney is handing you this card, like, finish the film, do it. It has to be out this Christmas. You don't have a lot of room and there's going to be slip-ups. I don't care if you're J.J. Abrams or Kevin Feige or whoever. You know, deadlines are deadlines. And you can't... Something the franchise of Star Wars has to be handled very delicately. Because if George Lucas created something that changed the entire world in terms of marketing, in terms of memorabilia, in terms of franchise and just fandom, George Lucas created that. George Lucas created something that, as a Marvel fan, I'm here today. What do you mean, Joe? Well, let me back up and tell you. George Lucas was such a marketing genius. Before The New Hope was even released in 1977, he had Marvel Comics and Stan Lee on the phone. Can you release comic books about this to create hype and buzz? Giving backstory to the saga I'm about to release? Guess what Stan Lee did? Yeah, absolutely. We'll run a 20-some issue span on Star Wars.
Wow.
And that's exactly what happened. I have issue 1 in my book in there. There was nothing about, and I know I'm ranting and raving, but there was no, like, setting up of a villain. You think of the original trilogy, you think of Darth Vader. And Darth Vader answering to Darth Sidious. That's darkness. Yeah. You know, even Anakin changing in Revenge of the Sith was just awesome to watch.
Yeah.
But Palpatine out of nowhere?
It just, to me, these are all decisions. And even what they did with these, you know, you build up the hype with these new characters, and I don't remember their names. Both women, Kerry Russell played one of them, and they're in the movie just to serve a purpose. One is Poe's love interest, quote unquote, and the other one is there. Now, what they did with Finn in this movie, even though they're still there, that one thing he kept saying in the movie, Ray, I got something to tell you. Ray, I've got something to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
They never come back to that.
No.
Now, I've heard, apparently somebody interviewed JJ and then blah, blah, blah. Can you answer this for us? And he's like, oh, yeah, he was force sensitive. That's what JJ said. But it's like, why don't you capitalize on the storyline in the movie instead of waiting to tell us after the film comes out? Because they never went back to that. And then what they did with the girl, it's like, I've ran away from the First Order. Finn could have been like this savior of former stormtroopers. Like, here's what I went through. But instead, in The Last Jedi, we have the dumb Canto Bight scene, which is one of my least favorite moments in Star Wars. And I'm sorry, but it ruined the character of Finn for me. Because it ruined him, man. And Rose, who I don't, nothing against the actress. My God, the people bombarded her. It's like, please get alive.
The poor lady.
But this character is not a good character. And in this movie, JJ basically gives the middle finger to all of these storylines. He's like, Rose, you want to come? It's just, and it's all these, and I kind of like that. But then in a way, it's like, but you have to acknowledge that there was you can't just forget about The Last Jedi as much as some people want them to. You can't, because it exists.
I agree.
And I feel like the first 45 minutes of this movie was JJ doing another Last Jedi, just his version. But the problem is, you can't do that in 45 minutes and squeeze it in with another film and make them one movie.
There was a lot of cutscenes, Austin. Like,
Wipe. It's like me on the toilet. It's a lot. It's a lot of wiping. It's constant. And I'm just
what in the world, son? Like, who needs a wipe when you have a bidet? Anyway, I'm just saying.
Yes.
But
sorry.
I think JJ tried to dabble on the fact that Finn was force sensitive when he was like, you know, they were looking up and trying to find where the commander was, the command ship that was sending out the signal. And he's like, that's the one. And everyone's like, are you sure? He's like, I can feel it. I know it's the one. But that's the only time. That's it. Expand on that a little bit. Give us something tangible to go on. Does Finn become a Jedi? Does he have midichlorian counts? What is going on with Finn? We don't know. Yeah. But
we don't know, man. We really don't know.
And we never will know because the story's done. Unless JJ has a 3.5 hour cut that we don't know about.
Snyder cut, let's go. But down to even, and I didn't mind what they did. I actually would have preferred at the end, not to skip all the way to the end, but at the end, if Rey would have said Palpatine instead of Skywalker. Josh actually joked. He said, what if Rey, instead of saying, what's your last name? Skywalker. Josh said, what's your last name? Palpatine. Then she zapped the lady that asked her. But no, you tell her Palpatine, because now you're giving that name that represents pure evil. Now you're giving it, you're turning it and shedding light on that name. Man. I thought that would have been better.
I'm laughing at your brother. You're trespassing, Jedi.
What's your name? Palpatine. but another thing about that last scene is, so from your interpretation, Joe, I'm just going to get this from you.
Okay.
Do you believe that Rey went back to Tatooine to stay isolated on Tatooine? Right? Is that what it felt like to you, or was it just to bury the lightsabers? Because if she went back to be isolated on Tatooine for at least a week, say she was there a week, why was BB-8 with her? BB-8 is not her droid. BB-8 is clearly Poe's droid. They established this relationship in the first movie. When he comes back, he says, "Buddy," and they come back together.
Yeah.
And they go. It feels like they don't want to be separated. Why is BB? Is it just because it was cute? Let's have the cute little droid. But from a writing perspective, it makes no sense.
No.
That is not her droid. They had it there because it was cute.
I think it started out in The Force Awakens with BB-8 coming to Rey. That, if you remember, BB-8 approached Rey. Well, it was Poe that was lost in the battle. BB-8 was lost and picked up for scraps.
Yeah.
And it just so happens she found it and befriended it, but actually it's Poe Dameron's droid.
Oh, droid. Yeah.
I don't even know if Rey has a droid.
I thought it would have been nicer to have R2-D2 there. Because
R2.
the torch was passed to Rey from Luke.
Yeah.
And I do believe that should have been the same case with R2-D2. I think that would have been a bit more poetic, but that's,
Now,
it's a
to answer your question about going back to Tatooine and Luke's home planet and all that.
I did like that, by the way.
I thought it was a nice touch with the double sun, sunset. I thought it was like poetic in a way. Like they started it out with Luke looking out over the dunes and just wondering his destiny before he chose to go find Obi-Wan Kenobi. And here is Rey back at the home front, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And
I don't understand why she was burying Leia's lightsaber, because Leia was not from there.
Yes.
Luke was given to the farmers in secret, as Obi-Wan was there to protect Luke and oversee, whereas Leia was given royalty. Her parents were part of the was it not Alderaan?
Yes, Alderaan.
Mm-hmm. So it's just like, all right, so why wouldn't her lightsaber go back? I don't know. Well, Alderaan's doesn't exist because it was blown away by the Death Star. But it was, I guess it would make sense maybe because Luke and Leia were tied and connected as twins.
Sure. Yeah, that is a good point.
I mean,
man, I do believe that.
I'm just talking all this out. I'm just snowballing all this because I don't really have.
I like the idea of that ending a lot. I just don't think the execution, even when she said Skywalker, it's like, but that's not your name.
Yeah.
It's just not. It would have made more sense to me if the title, The Rise of Skywalker, is more about Ben coming to the light side.
Thank you.
Even though he's a solo, he's still part Skywalker.
But now Ben is a part of Rey because Ben transferred all of his energy into Rey.
That's true. But even then, it's like, she's a Palpatine. She's not a Skywalker. So maybe it works for the title of the movie. That's why they wrote it that way.
Yeah.
But embrace the name of Palpatine to basically say Palpatine is now on the light side, like a big middle finger to Emperor Palpatine. Like, your name now represents good, whereas it used to represent evil. To me, that's more powerful than claiming the name of Skywalker, which is nice and it is in a way poetic, but it also just kind of bugged me the way that they went about doing that. A lot of great ideas in this movie, a lot of wonderful ideas. The battle at the end was great. I think the idea of the ships rising from the ashes and the battle with Emperor Palpatine was great. But let's also go back to the fact that Ben was fighting the Knights of Ren. Joe, let me ask you a question.
Oh, yeah.
Who are the Knights of Ren?
Do you know what the word Ren means? The word Ren means lightsaber.
Okay.
Saber of light. So basically,
Okay.
they're Knights of lightsabers.
But who are they?
The Knights
Where
of
do they come from?
Well, the Knights of Ren is discussed in one of the old Republic documents, but in
Yeah.
terms of they're an elite force of what do you call those people that? What do you call a samurai who goes rogue? What is that called?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a name for them. Shoot, I'll have to go. But they're like outcasts,
Okay.
but they're like peacekeepers as well.
Okay.
Think Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Neither pro nor con, but they have agendas. They have things that they work for. And I guess
That sounds...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, that sounds really cool. That would have been a nice thing to explore in these movies.
Yes, it would have.
That sounds really, really cool. What you just told me is awesome.
Yeah.
So I still don't know anything about them because they wasted these characters that were teased, and this is probably also on Ryan Johnson, that were teased in The Force Awakens to be these really cool epic characters that were most likely going to come into play in the second movie, and nothing.
Yeah.
They had an opportunity in this movie to maybe give them a bit more fleshing out. And we see them following Kylo Ren. I'm like, oh, are we going to, okay, who's this guy? Who's this guy? I don't even know if they got a line of dialogue except during the fight scene when they're all going, ah, ooh, ee. That's it.
Well, so the Knights of Ren are, I just Googled it while you were talking. Essentially, they are the right arm of Supreme Leader Snoke.
Okay.
And Kylo is the leader of that. But that is not the Knights of Ren from canon. I'm going to tell you that much right now. So,
Yeah.
all right, so let's back up for a second.
Yeah.
There's a lot we're digesting here, and I think, Rey choosing the name Skywalker. Let's continue that conversation just for 60 seconds. I think I can see why she would want to do that, because at the beginning of the film, you think of the Force Awakens. She is a loner on an island, living, literally scrapping the desert to find her next meal. She doesn't know her origin story. She doesn't know her last name. She just knows her name's Rey, because that's what everybody calls her. She's basically, if you was to take somebody from Russia who does not speak English and transplant them in the middle of the United States and expect them to live with no job or anything, that's exactly, I use that only as an example. Take somebody from a foreign country, a third world country, put them in the middle of New York City and expect them to try to make ends meet and live and survive. So if you think about it in that mentality, and then she starts figuring out things about herself that she didn't know, and people started becoming her friends, Leia, Organa, and then she becomes trained by the master Jedi himself, Luke. I could see why she would probably want to pick that as opposed to her lineage, who's somebody that she didn't even find out to the end of her legacy.
Yeah.
Her bloodline, because it's such a dark legacy.
Yeah.
Do you really want to be connected to that? Or do you want to be connected to names that bring light and positivity? So I can understand that was not explored in the film. But that is just me kind of working through that thought process a little bit.
I get that. I mean,
yes, Ronin. Thank you, David Farrell. Ronin. A samurai that goes rogue is called a Ronin.
Okay, yeah.
So Knights of Ren are basically
Hawkeye and Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, so basically, Ronins, that's what Knights of Rens are. They're mercenaries. Think of Mandalorians, but not Mandalorians.
Okay.
Okay, but that wasn't...
explore that in these
that
movies.
wasn't
But even then, man, it's like, to me, a father figure towards her was more so Han Solo than Luke Skywalker, because Last Jedi, portrayed Luke as a jerk.
Yeah.
He was a jerk.
He was
a weathered old man who was not very nice to Rey. So it's like, and I get you want to embrace the Jedi, but it's like, even Kylo says in The Force Awakens, he's like, you look at my father as a father figure towards you, like you look at Han Solo as he's your father. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that makes more sense than, but these are all just things that's like, to me, these are things that say that they had to incorporate things without having the time to explore them.
Expand
but they
them.
also made the mistake in ignoring very crucial and important things from the previous movie, even if I think the previous movie botched those things. it's just an inconsistent trilogy for me. It's just
on The Force Awakens,
how it is.
they could have spent 5 minutes in discussing the backstory of the Ronin legacy. Yes. And in the Last Jedi, the Ronin was there, and because Kylo Ren was the one that destroyed the Jedi Temple. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Why did they do that? What was their ambition to destroy the folklore of the Jedi? Were they hired by Snoke to do that?
Yeah.
Do you have the answers? Because I don't.
Now, I do like how some things from The Last Jedi, everybody's saying it completely ignores The Last Jedi. I don't think that's true.
No, it doesn't.
Force communication between Kylo and Rey was established in The Last Jedi. I thought that was executed really well. Like, there are some really... Now, what are the rules there? It's like, how much matter can we transfer? And the entire, draining the life force and the essence. Since Rey healed a couple of times and she kind of drained her life force a few times during the movie, does that mean her life force is now shortened? Or did Kylo giving her essence now make her more powerful? It's like, I would have liked to have known these, but these weren't things that I don't think this movie had to focus on. What it had to focus on were these character arcs that I just don't think were handled very well.
Yeah.
The ones that I've mentioned so far is they didn't focus on them.
And also the characters that were introduced, Poe's love interest. There's no backstory there. All we know is Poe was a spice runner. There's a lot of things. You sitting here and you're hearing us kind of harp on a lot of the negativity. It's really not negative things. It's a lot of nitpicky things that we just picked up on as like things that we wanted more backstory on. It would have been great. The only backstory that we got was Leia Organa's training as a Jedi.
That was great.
That was maybe that was the intent. Maybe that's the only backstory we really need to worry about right now.
And the first act was so rushed. I mean, so rushed. They flew through so many plot points and elements. And then the whole Hux thing being the spy, I'm just like,
yeah.
And that was another fault of The Last Jedi. They portrayed him as this wimp who gets slapped around, so you have to bring in a new guy that people will fear a bit more. But then he ends up being, the good guy. But we look at what he did in The Force Awakens, man. This is the Hitler-esque general standing above everyone, killing, destroying, I believe, 7 planets in that movie, and now he just turns good and everybody's like, oh, what you did is fine. Well, you just killed millions and millions and millions of people.
You think of the big battle on the salt planet with the red salt flying up and all the people that he killed and was responsible for? Yeah. Do you think an alliance person's going to be responsible for that much blood on his hands?
Yeah. And people could argue, well, Kylo came to the light side, but we saw that character progression.
Yeah.
We didn't see Hux's character progression.
No, we didn't.
It was just, I'm the spy. He literally said it like that. I'm the spy. I'm just like, where did that come from?
That was the worst line ever.
If JJ would have had the chance to craft this second film, I think this franchise would have been significantly better. Now, once again, I think there were some really cool things that happened in The Last Jedi. I think the ship going to light speed. I love the throne room battle. I think the way that's filmed and shot is just beautiful. But JJ's story could have been so much better if he would have had that second film to work with. Not that he wanted it, because he didn't want it.
I agree.
But Disney needed to say, hey,
I agree.
We need a plan. Where's the plan?
They should have broke the mold on the Star Wars franchise and let that one be split into 2 films.
Yes,
where the first one sets up Palpatine. Yeah. And the second one is the demise of Palpatine. And we're giving proper backstories on who the Knights of Ronin are and all the things that we've been talking about. We're given knowledge. You think about Marvel, how much time they spent. And I'm not comparing apples to oranges, but Marvel spent 22 films, 24 films setting up a backstory of a villain that we really didn't even meet until Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
Mm-hmm. And even with that many movies, they still split the last movie in 2. They did. Basically. And this franchise had 2 movies to build up to this one movie that should have been split into 2 movies.
Yeah, they shouldn't have crammed it all in 2.5 hours. They shouldn't have crammed it all. They should have split it up into 2 2-hour films and made it. Yeah. They could have really. I don't know, but these are our picky rants. I mean, we're being very picky, and we're coming up on 10 minutes after the hour, and I want to make sure that we give time to give our official review of what we thought on a scale of 1 to 10. But overall, there's just plot holes and storylines and character quirks behind us. I do feel that there is a sense of finality. I do feel there is a sense of rest, and that JJ did the best he could with what he was given. I said that at the beginning of my review. It's not perfect by no means. It's not a perfect film, and I'm hoping on my second viewing tomorrow night on December 23rd that I'll be able to pick up on a few things that maybe I've missed along the way. Austin, have you seen it once or twice already?
I was supposed to see it last night. I've only seen it once, and my opinion changes with these Star Wars movies. It feels like every day. So this is one that I'm praying I get more answers, and if that's the case, then I do think I could end up looking back at it as something that is a bit better than I think a lot of people are saying it is right now. Yeah. So I hope it has good rewatchability. I
hope so too. And so I do highly encourage you guys to go check out the film and make your own conclusions. Don't listen to what me and Austin are saying. I mean, absolutely. At the end of the day, the one thing I always tell to all of my listeners and friends is, like, when you go into a movie, if you're looking to be entertained, that's the main thing. Are you entertained? Are you having a great time? And if you're not, then you might want to go to the next theater. But the thing about it is, I felt really entertained. There were some fan service moments in there that really made me smile. There were some moments in there that kind of felt like I wanted to well up and have a little allergic reaction in my eye. Mm-hmm. The one thing that this film does convey, The Rise of Skywalker, is emotion. And the emotion is more heavier in this film than any Star Wars film to date.
Chewie's reaction when he learned that Leia was gone.
Oh, God. Heart-wrenching.
Oh, my God.
Chewie's reaction was heart-wrenching, dude. Wow. I mean, Peter Mayhew would probably applaud that if he was still alive. God rest his soul. Yes, but amazing film. Austin, I want to go with you on your review. All right, so before we're going to give our official review of the film, 1 out of 10, what do you give it?
See, you know me, man. I this is tough for me because I'm balancing all of the problems that I have with the actual movie, but then I'm also balancing the fact that you said it was entertaining. Mm-hmm. And I had somebody tell me in my actual review on YouTube, they're like, dude, you pointed out all these nitpicks, but you still gave it a positive review. And I'm like, I had fun.
I did. Yeah, it was a fun film.
I can't deny I was entertained, and I can't deny there was clear finality to this saga. So right now my score, 6 being positive, right now my score is a 6.3 out of 10. Because I do think this was fun enough to be considered a fresh movie, if you will, on Rotten Tomatoes. Still don't know why some people are giving it 0 out of 5 on Rotten Tomatoes. It kills me. But I do have a feeling once I rewatch this multiple times. This is kind of how I feel about Revenge of the Sith. Like, I have issues, big issues with Revenge of the Sith. Big issues, man. But I'm at about a 7 with that movie, and I feel like this could end up at a 7. So right now I'm sticking with my score. I'm going 6.3 out of 10. But I'm going to watch it again. I'm going to see how I feel.
Okay.
And we'll see.
My review is actually a 7.2. That was the number that I was feeling coming out of the theater. I was like, the fact that I was entertained and emotionally wrecked when I walked out of the theater was the saving grace for me, because I felt like, oh my God, I really went on a crazy journey just then. It felt like the space opera that George Lucas had created. Yes, there was plot holes. They could probably make a sequel on the film that they just made because there's so many plot holes in it. But having said that, I felt like, around a 7 was, like you, my score may change after tomorrow night. I may see some things that I missed the first time, be like, oh my God, how did I miss that? Mm-hmm. And I may go to a 7.5. I may increase it, but as of right now, I'm a 7.2. And it's definitely one that is for the record books. It's probably, aside from The Force Awakens, which is probably one of my favorite of the new trilogy, it's definitely it's a good one. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to be entertained.
I will say this, not to interrupt, but you brought up a really good point just now. This does feel, out of the 3 movies in the new out of all of the Disney Star Wars movies, this feels the most like George Lucas.
It does feel the most like George Lucas. There's almost as if they were consulting him in the background, because George is the god of the rock opera, the space opera story. And there were so many elements to Lucas's original 3 that's just like, everything was just intricately JJ, like I said, he did the best he could with what he had.
He's a good filmmaker.
And it's not perfect. And I think if he would have had more time, an extra 8 months or something along those lines, he could have really woven the story together a little bit better. But 7.2.
This movie was rushed too. We can't forget, because Colin Trevorrow was supposed to direct this film.
True.
And JJ came in at the last second. I mean, and he even said, we had to finish this script fast. So I do not blame JJ, man.
No.
I do not. I think he is a brilliant filmmaker. And just down to the choice of bringing back Hayden Christensen for one voiceover at the end as Anakin.
That was
and
nice.
Mace Windu and all these characters. I'm like, he cares, man. He cares about the fans. There's no denying that.
There's no denying
I liked his decision making. I really did.
Well, Luke McCracken, but how do you feel about cats? No, that's another discussion for another day. Oh, are you happy you got that reaction, Luke? Because that's recorded live on the stream, by the way. All right, man, you ready to wrap this thing up? Holy cow, that was crazy. No more cats on this end. That's insane. Austin, all right, bring us home, son.
I'm going to furball. I'm going to throw it up in the toilet. Okay, I'm Austin Burke at the Burkinator on the Twits and the Instagrams. Austin Burke on YouTube. We are part of the newly formed creative group known as the Creative Multiverse. For more great media content, artwork, and more, find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Creative Multiverse. If you are a creative, you produce content, you have a talent, we want to see it, and we would like for you to share it with us in the multiverse. Guys, do this. I'm telling you, it's really cool. If you want to share whether it's a talent or just a passion, this is the perfect place to do it. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. If you join, share. That's exactly what we want. You guys can also connect with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, Pinterest, all at PopXcast. Send us comments and suggestions via email at popxcast@gmail.com. And for future and past shows, you can visit our official website at www.popxcast.com.
That's exactly right. And I want to say a huge shout out to all of our friends, Mr. Stephen Haywood and Telestream, just all of our faithful watchers and listeners too. You guys are amazing. Thanks for hanging with us for the past couple of months while we were kind of away. I will say this much, that 2020 is going to be rocking your socks with PopX content as we come back in the new year. And we've got so many great films coming out in 2020, and we're just going to be here to just cover every single bit of it. And all your favorite comic book and pop culture news, you're going to stay right here, PopXcast. We're going to be bringing you some pretty cool stuff. And I'm Joseph Burke at Joseph Burke Arts on social media. And of course, hats off to amazing Team PopX, yourself. Want to give a big shout out to my buddy up in Atlanta who couldn't make it tonight, Mr. Mike Ippolito. And I want to give a huge shout out to Lindsay Badger, another one of our co-hosts who couldn't make it tonight. But that's it for this episode of PopXcast as we wrap up the last PopX of 2019. Is that weird to say? It's crazy, dude. We're days from 2020. What the heck? And I'm 40 years old. What is going on with us? That's insane. Be sure to tune in on episode 105 coming up in the new year. We'll have some great new topics and great new things for you to discuss. And from all of us here at PopXcast, we want to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. All right? So take care, and we'll see you next time right here on PopXcast. From everyone at PopXcast, thanks for listening. Please make sure to like our Facebook page, facebook.com/PopXcast, and click the follow button to get our live stream notifications. Drop us an email, popxcast@gmail.com. Be sure to check out this and more great content on the Gonna Geek Network at GonnaGeek.com. Get your geek on!